So the days of Noah and the days of Lot that we read about in the Gospels, what we're looking at is actually the return of the gods, the return of the sons of God, the return of the watchers who are currently in the pit. What we're looking at is the conditions that existed on earth, the entities that were on the earth prior to the flood. And it's really amazing to me how people miss this. And they tend to believe that because people were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage and planting and reaping and so on and so forth, that somehow or another, what that means is that life is normal before the wrath of God is poured out on these people. Well, that is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a recreation of the days of Noah. So before we get into the actual days of Noah and days of Lot, we have to lay a foundation here. And the foundation is called dominion. The kind of dominion that God has given to his angels, given to mankind. We know that angels were given dominion. And I just want to look at a partial list here of the various realms that different angels were given dominion over. And some of these might be kind of new to you. Some of them were new to me. So there is an angel who actually has authority or dominion over water. Revelation 6:5. And I heard the angel in charge of the waters say, "Just are you, O Holy One, who is and who was, for you brought these judgments." There's an angel over the fire. It's not just an angel over fire, it's over the fire, and I believe that's the fire that is in the lake of fire. Revelation 14:18. And another angel came out from the altar, the angel who has authority over the fire, and he called with a loud voice to the one who had the sharp sickle, "Put in your sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, for its grapes are ripe." Some angels have authority over nations or territories. Daniel 10:20 says this. Then he said, "Do you know why I have come to you? But now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia." Okay, this is an angel of some kind. "And when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come." So that's a different fallen angel who has authority over Greece. There is an angel over Israel. Daniel 12:1. "At that time shall arise Michael, the great prince, who has charge over your people." Okay, there is an angel over the air. Ephesians 2:1 and 2. "And you were dead in your trespasses and sins, in which you previously walked according to the ways of this world, according to the ruler who exercises authority over the lower heavens, the spirit now working in the disobedient." That's the Holman translation. The prince of the power of the air. Okay, that's Satan. He is given authority over the air, the atmosphere, over the earth. So before creation, God assigned angels their areas that they were to take responsibility or have stewardship or dominion or authority over. Okay, and some of these were like over water, over fire, over the air, over, there's probably an angel over the altar in heaven. We know that there are 4 angels who are responsible for space-time. We talked about that in the video I did on Ezekiel. There's angels who are over all kinds of things, some things in heaven and some things on earth. So in the beginning, when God said, "Let us make man in our image," it's possible that not only was God talking about, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, that us, but also the us, talking about the sons of God who are part of, God's divine counsel. And on the 6th day of creation, after God had made everything, okay, the dry land, the sun, moon, and stars, and animals and plants, then he created man to be the one who would have authority or dominion over the earth. So angels have dominion over all kinds of other things, and now man was going to be given dominion over all this that God had created. Genesis 1:26, then God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, over the livestock, over the earth, and over everything that creeps on the earth. So man was given dominion over animals and over all the earth. Okay, because dominion is delegated, all those who exercise dominion must eventually give an account of how they did this, because it's all delegated. So we all have a stewardship. Even angels have a stewardship that they have to give an account for. So the angels that are cast out of heaven, the watchers who come up from the pit, the 4 angels who are bound at the river Euphrates, all of these beings have at one time or another had delegated authority, and they will have to give an account for it. And the Bible tells us that we're going to judge angels. That'll be interesting. Now, the fallen angels, with the exception of Satan, are going to be judged during this time that we call the tribulation. I'm going to use that phrase, the tribulation, even though that isn't a technical phrase. It isn't the true name for this period of time that we're about to enter into. But the time of tribulation is not about God's judgment on an unbelieving world. God does not judge unbelievers during the tribulation. Unbelievers will be judged at the great white throne judgment. Believers have already passed over from death to life. Christ experienced the judgment for us, but we will give an account at the Bema seat. This isn't about salvation. This is about our stewardship, what we did. So who or what is being judged at the end of the tribulation during the wrath, when the wrath of God is going to come? That's the fallen angels, the demons, the watchers, the beast, the false prophet, people who take the mark of the beast, those who are made in the image of the beast. The tribulation is what leads up to the judgment of the fallen ones. The tribulation is not, I repeat, it is not the judgment of God on an unbelieving world. Unbelievers will be judged at the great white throne judgment. If a person takes the mark of the beast, they are no longer a person. Okay, they've become something else. It will somehow change a person, so they are no longer a person who's going to be judged at the great white throne judgment. They will be thrown into the lake of fire along with the beast and the false prophet, along with anyone else who has anything to do with the beast kingdom, the fallen angels, or anything like that. So in addition to God allowing mankind to basically have a seat at the table when it comes to ruling, along with the sons of God who have all been given jobs to do, God gave man, unlike the angels, and this is a kicker here. This is something that is brand new. God gave man the ability to produce other eternal rulers. In other words, God gave man the ability to procreate. Okay, angels don't do that. At least they shouldn't do that. So Genesis 1:27 and 28. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. The angels in their heavenly state did not have the authorization or the ability to procreate. There were no female angels. God created each angel one at a time. They were individually created. No doubt some of the angels became jealous as it was starting to look like God had plans for this new group, this group of rulers who would have dominion over the earth. And even though they were created from the dust of the ground, they were created in the image of God. So we need to talk about the woman here. God created them male and female. Up until the 6th day of creation, the female aspect of God was unknown. Okay, the feminine part of being created in the image of God was unknown. The angels didn't know about it. Okay, God never showed it to them. It wasn't until creation that God took his image and he made the image reflected in male and female. So this female portion was actually hidden in God. Christ has had the church hidden inside of him since before creation. And the woman was actually hidden inside of the man before God took the rib out of the man's side and built the woman. There's something about a woman that is hidden, okay, that is tucked away and brought forth at a certain point in time. Up until the creation, no woman had ever existed outside of God. But yet God expressed himself as male, the Holy Spirit, male, the Son, male, all he, hims, okay? The angels were the sons of God, also male. Yet to the surprise and hopefully the delight of angels, this woman who was hidden in God was an integral part of the image of God. And it's when the man and the woman are joined together in union that they become life-giving, breathing reflections of God's image housed in mortal bodies made of dust. Okay, this is really a mind-blowing concept, and the whole idea of the bride of Christ is hidden right here in this. It's hidden in the woman, Eve, who was hidden in Adam. It's hidden in Christ. The church, the bride, is hidden and is not going to be revealed until the new creation, when there's the new heavens and the new earth. Up until that time, we're all sons. Okay, we're all sons of God. And it's not until later that the bride is brought out in all of her glory and her fullness. So God is full of surprises, and one of his biggest surprises was this woman part of him. I'm sure there were angels who were not happy about this, or this was a kind of question mark, because we know angels fell, that God had this secret inside of him, that the secret was a woman, was women in general. So God's image is manifested in the union of male and female. Okay, whether it's Adam and his wife, Christ and the church. Now we have this new thing that hadn't existed before, and that's the woman, brand new, had never existed before creation, when God expresses himself in this form. And it would take the man and the woman together to fully express the image of God. So just hold all that in your mind, and we're going to go to talk about the fallen angels now, the fallen angels from Genesis 6. We know that Satan wanted to be like God. Okay, that's something that the Old Testament tells us. I want to be like God. But what about the angels who fell, the watchers? We know that they saw the daughters of men. We know that they thought they were beautiful, and that they decided to leave their estate as angels and to take these women to wives. This is Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4. And Jude tells us that these angels didn't stay within their own domain, but abandoned their proper dwelling. That is, they abandoned a heavenly body for an earthly type of one. And he has kept these angels in chains under darkness, bound for judgment until that great day. Okay, now the great day is the day of the Lord. It's when God is going to judge these beings. Okay, that's sort of what the tribulation is all about. It's leading to the judgment of the watchers, the fallen ones, and the fallen angels. But here's a question. Did the fallen angels want to be like God too, but in a different way than Satan wanted to be like God? Did they think that if they became the male part of a marriage union, that when joined with a woman, they could manifest the image of God? They could be like him in that way? Did they think that their offspring, the giants, would become maybe both the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman, and nullify the prophecy in Genesis 3:15 that it would be the seed of the woman who would crush the head of the seed of the serpent? These are just some questions to keep in the back of your minds as we look at the days of Noah and the days of Lot more closely. So let's take a look at that verse again, Luke 17:26 and 27. Just as it was in the days of Noah, so also it will be in the days of the Son of Man. People were eating and drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage up to the day that Noah entered the ark, and then the flood came and destroyed them all. People have used this passage to suggest that life will be normal during the last days prior to the rapture of believers, with eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, and so on and so forth. But we're talking about normal as in the days of Noah. What was normal in the days of Noah? Okay, that's different than what is normal now. What characterized the days of Noah? Okay, well, there were three main things. The first one is these illicit sexual unions or relations between angels and human women. Okay, angels were never authorized to procreate, ever. The second thing was violence. And the third thing was a continuous inclination towards wickedness and evil. Oh, and I have four things here. The corruption of all flesh, or all creatures, genetic or otherwise. Genesis 6 tells us that the sons of God went into the daughters of men, and they bore them children who became the mighty men of old, the men of renown. And Genesis 6, 5 through 7, the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great upon the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was altogether evil all the time. And the Lord regretted that he'd made man, and it grieved his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the earth. And let's go down to verse 11. Now the earth was corrupt, that is ruined. The earth was just ruined. That's what the word means there. It was corrupt in the sight of God. It was full of violence. Verse 12, and God looked upon the earth and saw that it was corrupt, for all living creatures, that is all manner of flesh, on earth had corrupted their ways. Okay, let's take a look at the days of Lot. Luke 17:28 and 29. It was the same in the days of Lot. People were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But on the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. Again, all seems to be normal, but is it really? Genesis 18, verses 20 and 21. Then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know it. Now remember, during the Tower of Babel, God said that he would come down to the earth and check out to see what these people were doing. Same thing. God is going to make a personal inspection, and actually this is the second person of the Trinity. This is the Son of God, a man, okay, to personally see what is going on. There is more violence, okay, more sin, more wickedness. And Genesis 19, verses 4 and 5 talks about more sex with angels, or the desiring of sex with angels. And this is the story of Lot, and Lot had brought the two angels into his home. These angels had come to warn Lot and to get him out of the city before fire would rain down the next day. And the people of the city saw these two angels go into Lot's home. Before they had gone to bed, all the men of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. Okay, I want to just point out the word men here. It's the word Strong's number 582, Enosh. It simply means mortal people or mankind. It can mean men, as in a man here. But later on, we're going to see that we're not just talking about the males of the community. We're talking about men and women. Both young and old surrounded the house, and they called out to Lot, saying, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Send them out to us so we can have relations with them. All right, so when the Lord and Abraham were talking about the destruction of Sodom and would God destroy Sodom for the sake of 50 men, eventually it was worked down to 10 righteous people, and God said, no, I won't destroy Sodom for the sake of 10 righteous people. You have to understand there weren't even 6 extra people in the whole of Sodom, Gomorrah, and the surrounding area. Everybody, without exception, was wicked to the core. There weren't even 6 other righteous people in Sodom. That's how depraved these people were. They were totally depraved. Did the people of Sodom know that Lot was entertaining angels? And the answer to that is yes, they did know that. And we'll see that in Jude verses 5 through 7 here in just a minute. They were acquainted with angels. Remember how the Bible tells us that there were giants on the earth prior to the flood and afterward as well, when the sons of God had relations with the daughters of men. Okay, so there wasn't just one incursion, one time when the sons of God, angels, had relations with men. It happened later too. And we know that the reason that God wanted the Israelites to destroy the Canaanites and all the people who were in Canaan was because they were Nephilim. They were children of angels. That this happened again. There was this whole infestation of giants in the land of Canaan, later Israel. It's clear that the first incursion of fallen angels before the flood wasn't the only one. It was the big one, but it wasn't the only one. And though the book of Enoch states that there were only 200 angels who engaged in this behavior, it's likely that over the course of time, there were far more. That it's possible that these 200 had been the leaders of this group only. Right? Jude verses 5 through 7. In like manner, that is, in like manner prior to the flood, during the days of Noah, Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, who indulged in sexual immorality and pursued strange flesh, are on display as an example of those who sustained the punishment of eternal fire. Okay, it wasn't just that they were sexually immoral. It's that they pursued or they desired strange, that is different. They wanted different kinds of bodies. They didn't want just another human body. And if we were just talking about people, men who wanted a homosexual relationship, it says they wanted different flesh. But we're not talking about people at all. We're talking about angels. That prior to the flood, the angels desired human women. And during the days of Lot, humans wanted to have sex with angels. And I'm sure that the sons of God wanted to have sex with human women as well, and perhaps even with men. But the people had been so corrupted that they wanted to have sex with fallen angels. And it's very likely that the people of Sodom, who were so defiled, so depraved, recognized that these 2 angels were not the regular fallen angels that they were accustomed to hearing about people having sex with, and even maybe some of them had engaged in that kind of behavior and probably had. They recognized that these were 2 undefiled angels. These were good angels, righteous angels. And can you imagine the coup that they would have? These wicked people of Sodom actually had been able to have sex with these good angels and defile them and cause them to go into the pit forever. Okay, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, let's defile these righteous angels. And they basically said to Lot, when Lot was trying to persuade them not to do this, they're like, well, we're going to do bad stuff to you too if you don't, let us have at them. And then Lot said, well, here's my virgin daughters. Okay. I mean, this all seems like crazy talk until you understand a couple things here. The first thing is that the custom that if you brought someone into your home, you were responsible for their safety. The second thing is that this wasn't just human people that he was entertaining. These were angels. Lot knew that this was an extreme responsibility that he had, and he was just grasping at straws to try to figure out how to prevent something very evil from happening. It turned out Lot didn't need to do that because those angels were well able to take care of themselves, and they blinded the people so that they couldn't find the door. But why? Why did these people want to have relations with the angels? You know, what's in it for them? Well, you know, outside of for wicked, people, totally depraved, totally defiled, unlike anything that we understand or know. If they had defiled those angels, yes, that would have been very bad. But the thing is, they believed, okay, and this is something that was carried on throughout the Bible, okay, and we'll look at some passages here in a minute. This is something that's carried throughout the Bible, that if you could be joined up with a god, the sons of the gods, whatever, or you had sexual union with them, that you would gain power, or you gain fertility or status in the community, or even be able to obtain some kind of the attributes or characteristics of the god, and you would become one with the divine. Okay, that's what they thought. I mean, there's a lot of motivation for them from their perspective to have sex with angels. In the days of Noah, the sons of God wanted to have relations with human women. But in the days of Sodom, men and women were desiring relationships with the sons of God, with angels. Okay, so we're going to take a look at pagan rituals. We're not going to look at them in depth because it's really awful talking about this stuff, and I'm just going to hit the high points to keep this a fairly PG rated video. But basically, the rituals that were associated with paganism and idolatry, particularly the kind of stuff that we saw in the land of Canaan, Mesopotamia, and even Egypt, they always incorporated sex into their worship. Always. It was always a component that was found in pagan religions. Male and female temple prostitutes were a part of their religion, and they would act as stand-ins for the gods. And people would have sexual relations with temple prostitutes as part of their worship, hoping to either derive some power from the deity or obtain his favor, his or her favor, and especially fertility, whether it's fertility, of having children, or fertility when it came to crops and so on. So not only did the fallen angels mate with human women, producing these mighty men, the giants, the fallen angels and the watchers, the sons of God, were also privy to secret wisdom and knowledge, which they imparted to humanity and made everything worse. They taught people how to make instruments of war, how to do war, taught women how to seduce men. So the corruption of humanity was not just genetic. They were corrupted in every way. But I want to talk about pagan worship and how it influenced the nation of Israel. And the reason for the Babylonian captivity, and ultimately the reason why the Jews were thrust out of the land, vomited out of the land, is because they were trying to recreate Genesis 6. Okay, I'm going to show you verses for this, and it's all through Scripture. I'm just highlighting them, and it may seem like I'm reading a lot of Scriptures, but I want you to see that Genesis 6, the reenactment of Genesis 6, the reenactment of the days of Noah, was what pagan religion was all about. And the pagan religion crept into, or was embraced by, the Jews, by the children of Israel. In Exodus 23, verses 20 through 25, God tells the children of Israel, before they go into the land, okay, before that even happens, what God's plan is about the people who are living in the land. Behold, I send an angel before you to guard you on the way and to bring you to the place that I've prepared. Pay careful attention to him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. He's talking about the second person of the Trinity here. He's talking about the Son of God. This is the angel, the messenger, who is going to guard them, and God's name is in him. Verse 22, but if you carefully obey his voice and do all that I say, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. And when my messenger goes before you and brings you into the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I blot them out, you shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do as they do. But you shall utterly overthrow them and break their pillars in pieces. You shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water, and I will take sickness away from among you. Numbers 25, 1-3. When Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality with the daughters of Moab. Okay, this is part of the religion, who also invited them to the sacrifices for their gods. And the people ate and bowed down to these gods. And so Israel joined in worshiping Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord burned against them. Exodus 32, verse 6. This is the Good News translation about the golden calf incident. Early the next morning, they brought some animals to burn as sacrifices, and others to eat as fellowship offerings. The people sat down to a feast, which turned into an orgy of drinking and sex. Job 36:14. They die in their youth among the male shrine prostitutes. Deuteronomy 23:17. None of the daughters of Israel shall be a temple prostitute. None of the sons of Israel shall be a temple prostitute. 1 Kings 14:22-24. For they also built for themselves high places and pillars and asherim on every high hill and under every green tree. And there were also male cult prostitutes in the land. And they did according to all the abominations of the nations that the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. In Ezekiel 6, verses 3-6, or 3-7, this is when Ezekiel is given a trip back to the temple prior to the Babylonian captivity. Remember, he moves through time and space here. You are to say, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord God. This is what the Lord God says to the mountains and hills, to the ravines and valleys. I'm about to bring a sword against you, and I will destroy your high places. Your altars will be demolished, and your incense altars will be smashed. And he's talking about the altars made to false gods, to demons. And I will cast down your slain before your idols, and I will lay the corpses of the Israelites before their idols, and scatter your bones around your altars. Wherever you live, the cities shall be laid waste, and the high places will be demolished, so that your altars will be laid waste and desecrated, your idols smashed and obliterated, your incense altars cut down, and your works blotted out. The slain will fall among you, and you will know that I am the Lord. 2 Kings 23, verses 6-8, talking about one of the good kings of Judah. And he brought out the Asherah from the house of the Lord. Okay, they had set up this horrible idol, horrible thing, in the house of the Lord. And he brought it outside Jerusalem to the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and beat it to dust, and cast the dust of it upon the graves of the common people. And he broke down the houses of the male cult prostitutes who were in the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings to the Asherah. Okay, so there were little rooms where the male cult prostitutes would have ritual sex with people in the worship of false gods. Basically the reenactment of Genesis 6 and the days of Lot. And he brought out all the priests of the cities of Judah and defiled the high places where the priests had made offerings from Geba to Beersheba. 2 Kings 21, 10 through 12. And the Lord spoke through his servants the prophets, saying, since Manasseh king of Judah has committed all these abominations, acting more wickedly than the Amorites who preceded him, okay, and these were like the Canaanites, giants who were to be rooted out of the land, and with his idols has caused Judah to sin, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Behold, I am bringing such calamity upon Jerusalem and Judah that the news will reverberate in the ears of all who hear it. And Ezekiel chapter 8. And there I saw the glory of the God of Israel, like the vision I had seen in the plain. Son of man, he said to me, now lift up your eyes to the north. And I lifted up my eyes to the north, and in the north entrance of the altar gate, I saw this idol of jealousy. Son of man, he said to me, do you see what they're doing? The great abominations the house of Israel is committing to drive me far from my sanctuary? You will see even greater abominations. And then he brought me to the entrance of the court, and I looked, and I saw a hole in the wall. Son of man, he said, dig through the wall. So I dug through the wall and discovered a doorway, and then he said to me, go in and see the wicked abominations they are committing here. So I went in and looked, and engraved all around the wall was every kind of crawling creature and detestable beast, along with all the idols of the house of Israel. And before them stood 70 elders of the house of Israel. Each had a censer in his hand, and a fragrant cloud of incense was rising. Son of man, he said to me, do you see what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the darkness, each at the shrine of his own idol? For they're saying, the Lord doesn't see us. The Lord has forsaken the land. And again he told me, you will see them committing even greater abominations. And then he brought me to the entrance of the north gate of the house of the Lord, and I saw women sitting there, weeping for Tammuz. Son of man, he said to me, do you see this? Yet you will see even greater abominations than these. And so he brought me to the inner court of the house of the Lord. And there at the entrance to the temple of the Lord, between the portico and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs to the temple of the Lord and their faces to the east, and they were bowing to the east in worship of the sun. Son of man, he said to me, do you see this? Is it not enough for the house of Judah to commit the abominations they are practicing here, that they must also fill the land with violence and continually provoke me to anger? Look, they're even putting the branch to the nose. Therefore I will respond with wrath. I will not look on them with pity, nor will I spare them, though they shout loudly in my ears. I will not listen to them. The Jews were removed from the land because they were longing for and reenacting the days of Noah and the days of Lot. They were reenacting Genesis 6. They were reenacting Sodom and Gomorrah. They were participating in all and actually exceeding all the foul and debased acts of the Canaanites, things for which the Canaanites were vomited out of the land. The days of Noah and the days of Lot are not just about people eating and drinking and getting married and planting crops. They're about the return of the gods, okay? The Genesis 6 sons of God, and the relationship which existed prior to the flood between mankind and fallen angels. The days of Noah are about the return to the time before the flood, when fallen angels were present on earth, corrupting fallen humanity and imparting forbidden knowledge. What I want you to see is this. The end is declared from the beginning. The things we see in the beginning are things that are going to play out in the end. That this cycle is going to repeat all over again. The things that happened with at the time of Genesis 6 are going to be repeated. They're the days of Noah and Lot. And they are going to have their version of the days of Noah when they ruled the earth. Okay, when they ruled the earth. just prior to their judgment on the great day. So just before the abomination of desolation, the watchers are going to be released from the pit on the anniversary of the date that they were put in the pit. How about that? And before the abomination of desolation takes place, all of Satan's fallen angels that are in heaven, plus Satan, will be cast to the earth. The beast will be killed and will be resurrected as a man with the spirit of Apollyon inside of him, a hybrid. Okay, it's going to look a little different than the Nephilim did in the days of Noah, but it's going to be a hybrid. The watchers will be getting a host human body, because remember, the dominion of the earth was given to men who are made of dust. Angels cannot control this world. And even Satan will have to give, or he will choose to, he will give his power, his throne, and his authority to the beast, who is a man, because only men can rule the world. Okay, and he will be a hybrid. And there will be people made in the image of the beast who will be hybrids. Okay, and we're going to talk more about this in another video. But I want you to see that all of the corruption that was in the land of Israel, the worship of idols, is not just about worshiping, stones and images like that. It's about a longing for the return of the Nephilim, for the return of the days of Noah prior to the flood, to the golden age, okay, when the gods lived on the earth or interacted with humanity. This is all real stuff. This all really happened. The giants were real. This is all real. But we're not talking about normal life like we see normal now. We're talking about what was normal in the days of Noah. Okay, that's what we're talking about. And a lot of the weird sex stuff that we see going on in the world today is a debased form of the image of God. Male and female. Some of this androgyny that we see in satanic worship, this is a corrupted version of the male and female aspects of God. This was never how God wanted it to be expressed, but this is kind of how Satan looks at it. The weird stuff that we see going on in the world, where we don't know what a woman is and we don't know what a man is, has to do with why God created men and women in the first place, which is when they are joined together, living in unity with each other, having a one flesh relationship with each other. This is one way that the image of God is expressed in the world. So, hard video. I know it's really difficult, but you can see how we have to actually step back, get the big picture so that we can understand what the passages are that we're looking at in the Bible. It wasn't that God hated, all the people who were living in the land of Canaan, but he didn't want the return to the Genesis 6 world. He was trying to prevent that because he wanted Christ to be born of a pure seed. We have to get rid of all of those fallen creatures. And that's what they were. They were hybrids. They weren't true humans.